Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome each and every one of you to a new League of Legends video. So today we're going over the next patch that is coming to League of Legends, patch 8.2, which should be hitting the live servers in just a couple of days. There's a lot of information to go through, and this is going to be a fairly big patch because Riot is now releasing big patches every other patch, and the patches in between will be smaller patches. So as per usual, if you guys end up enjoying this video or finding it useful or whatever, then definitely hit that like button. But let's not waste any more time and get right into the biggest changes coming in patch 8.2. So first, very quickly, I wanted to talk about a relatively small change, but it actually has a pretty big and very useful impact. Because now, as you can see, you can actually see and also ping your ultimate cooldown just on the scoreboard. So you don't have to, kind of ask your teammates if their ult's up or when it's up. You can just press tab and you'll see the green bubble as it also fills up to know exactly when your teammates' ultimates are off cooldown, which is a very useful thing. But next, let's talk about the changes happening to the champions, the first of which being Brand. Now, his nerf I talked about a few videos ago, but we'll mention it once again. His passive is being nerfed to where now it only actually works on champions or large monsters, not every single monster. So for instance, if the wording is correct or if I'm not mistaken, it will not work on things like Baron or Dragon, which is perfectly fine because at the moment, considering his passive did just recently get buffed, it just does way too much damage to Baron and also Dragon, especially if you're playing Brand support to where you're doing so much damage that you may as well just be the strongest person on your team. Following this, we also have a nerf coming over to Evelynn, which is quite funny because ever since she was released, she was just absolutely horrible. Riot finally buffed to the point where she's actually pretty good at the moment, and then she's getting hit with the nerf once again already. Regardless though, the nerf is as follows. Whiplash, her E ability, the unempowered damage has been decreased, whether it's the percent max health at the beginning or the scaling as well, and the empowered damage of this ability has also been nerfed to where now it does 4% max health rather than 6, and it also doesn't scale as well anymore. Honestly, it's not the biggest nerf in the entire world, but it's also not the smallest nerf in the entire world as well. I mean, her E ability is not going to be doing anywhere near as much damage, especially to tanks, but at least her E ability is the only one that actually does percent damage. So if you're facing a bunch of kind of squishy champions, you will still have more or less your actual damage to those champions since your base damage on the other abilities is untouched. Following Evelynn, we also have a quick nerf coming over to Ezreal, who's just absolutely tearing it up at the moment in solo queue. I believe Ezreal and Vayne are actually probably the best ADCs at the very moment because I see them picked and banned pretty much every single game. The nerf towards Ezreal is only going to be lowering his Mystic Shot, the Q ability's damage, by just a bit. So 20 damage rank 1, and it'll slowly even out, so by rank 5, it'll actually be the exact same damage, which is honestly hardly a nerf. Like, sure, it'll affect his laning phase by just a bit, but I mean, given how strong he is and how just safe and consistent he is, I feel like they're gonna have to do a lot more than this, especially since his Q ability is the first ability you max regardless, so you'll get it to the normal damage, the damage it currently is on the live servers by rank 5 pretty quickly. Next up, we have a mini rework coming over to Jinx that I did talk about in the past, where again I'll give you a very quick TLDR at the very end. So her base AD has been slightly lowered and her AD growth has actually been slightly increased. Now her passive, Get Excited, the attack speed no longer stacks, but the attack speed now is uncapped whenever her passive actually activates. But moving on to her Q ability, you can see by rank 5 the attack speed it offers now is almost double. But minigun attack speed no longer scales with Jinx's level. Now if you were to kind of do the rough math on this, essentially the TLDR is the fact that it's a lot more useful early game in the laning phase and even the mid game, but as you get to the later parts of the game, once you get to level 17 or 18, you'll actually get a little bit less overall bonus attack speed offered just by Jinx or her abilities than you will with this new Jinx. But for the majority of the game, about 70% of it, you're actually getting more attack speed, especially since you'll be able to get this massive attack speed bonus very early as long as you max your Q ability first, which is a pretty big win. On top of this, her swap after switching from rockets to minigun is slightly faster, and they also updated the rocket attack animations to feel snappier, whatever that means. So like I said, TLDR for Jinx, much better in the laning phase and the mid game, and also the very quick transition into late game, but as you get to level 18 and the very late game part of the game itself, you'll be getting slightly less attack speed overall, but it's not too bad. Next up, we have a change coming over to Kha'Zix to where I honestly can't tell if it's a nerf or a buff, because first we have his passive, Unseen Threats. The bonus AD ratio on this has been lowered from 0.4 to 0.2. But then we move on to his Q ability, Taste Their Fear, and the bonus AD on this has been increased from 110% to 120%. So you have kind of a nerf to his passive, but a buff to his Q. Not entirely sure if it's an overall nerf or an overall buff, but those are the changes to Kha'Zix this patch. Following that, we have a nerf coming over to Malzahar, and God bless these nerfs because goddammit, get this champion out of my games. I'm tired of banning him every single time. Call of the Void, his Q ability, the AP ratio has been decreased by 15, which I mean is not too bad, I'll take it. And Nether Grasp, his ultimate, the cooldown has been increased by 20 seconds rank 1, 10 seconds rank 2, and it'll even out at 80 seconds rank 3. Honestly, not the biggest nerf in the entire world to Malzahar. I mean, it's one I'll take, it's one I'm accepting for sure. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world either, but again, I don't feel like it'll completely gut the champion. It'll just make him a bit weaker for sure, but I mean, hopefully he just won't be a pick or ban champion in the mid lane. Following this, we also have yet another mini rework, and this one is going to be towards NUNU, a champion that very much needs it. Because at the very moment, NUNU is arguably the worst champion in League of Legends, to where if I see a NUNU being picked in Champ Select, I'm assuming someone's trolling, and most likely we're expecting a dodge. Now the rework is as follows. His Q ability now has a new effect that states, well fed now additionally grants up to 11 base magic damage on basic attacks with a 5% AP scaling. And this also stacks per stack of the Q ability, so you can get 5 times the listed amount if you're super well fed, which if you play on hit NUNU, and I honestly won't be surprised if we start seeing top lane on hit NUNU with Nashor's Tooth and things like that, it could be pretty spicy. But it does not end there just yet, because his Blood Boil ability also now has a new effect, which states the following. Now additionally increases AP by 40% for both targets, but the actual maximum amount of AP that this ability will offer to that champion and to NUNU himself is going to be 120 AP. Now this is actually quite spicy, because personally I love playing as Azir in the mid lane, and if I have a NUNU on my team that Blood Boils me into the late game, not only is he giving me most likely 120 AP, but since Azir is essentially an attack based champion where you just consistently auto attacks with his soldiers, this will actually increase his damage by quite a bit. But even in general, just having the NUNU on your team giving your mid laner that extra 120 AP, which is a lot, that's essentially a Rabadon's almost, that's pretty damn spicy. Moving along, we also have a nerf coming over to Ornn, to where now his W, as he's advancing while casting it, or I guess quote unquote channeling it, he is no longer unstoppable, so you can actually CC him and he won't be able to do anything about it, which is a very big nerf, because at the moment he can dodge so many CC and so many ultimate abilities with his W, it's pretty overpowered. And his ultimate is also receiving a nerf, to where the cooldown has just simply been increased at every single rank, which is a pretty good nerf. Moving along, we have a quick buff coming over to Sona, to where her Hymn of Valor, her Q ability, the cost has actually been lowered by 10 at every single rank. Not the biggest buff in the entire world, but Sona is one of those kind of slippery champions to where if you buff her too much, she's easily the best support champion by far, so you gotta tread carefully with her. And the final change to champions is going to be to none other than Vayne, where the final hour, the bonus AD has actually been lowered. So I mean, you know, it's not the biggest nerf to Vayne, considering she's arguably the best ADC at the moment, probably tied with Ezreal, or maybe even better than Ezreal. I feel like they'll need to do a little bit more, but there's an indirect nerf to Vayne as well with the changes to the support items, and hopefully that's enough. But speaking of the support items, well, I mean, all 3 of them just got essentially a rework, and now I'm going to give you guys a very quick TLDR because it does take a bit to explain. Pretty much Sightstone has been completely removed, so you can't obviously buy the item itself anymore, especially for support champions, which was a very common buy. Especially also combining it with your support item, like, you know, the Relic Shield or the Spell Thieves, to essentially combine both items into one. The way it works now instead is, as you complete the quest for your specific support role item, or whichever one you chose, like the Relic Shield, the Spell Thieves, or the coin, as you finish the quest, you'll actually be able to upgrade it into the tier 3 version, and the tier 3 version of these support items will now essentially come with the Sightstone added to it. That's kind of a quick TLDR about the rework of the support items. If you want much more in-depth information, I highly recommend checking out Surrender at 20 to really truly read into it. Also very quickly, Runic Echoes is receiving a slight buff, to where now large monsters hit mana restore increase from 15% to 25%, obviously trying to make AP champions, ones that build Runic Echo in the jungle, seem a little bit more tempting. Next up, we also have some changes coming over to the runes. So for instance, we have Aftershock and Guardian, both of which being nerfed, which is obviously a very good thing because they were just simply way too overpowered. Some changes to Grasp of the Undying for ranged champions, to where now the damage, healing, and permanent health gained by Grasp of the Undying has been reduced by 40%. Triumph getting yet another nerf, where the gold on takedown has been lowered from 25 to 20. Coup de Grace damage has been lowered from 9% to 7%, which is a little bit unfortunate, I'd have to say. Last Stand has also been nerfed, to where now it goes from 5% to 11% rather than up to 12%, which is surprising because I didn't even know anyone takes this rune. Glacial Augment receiving a buff, to where the slow has been just overall increased. And Zombie Ward, of course, getting the nerf, where the ward duration has been changed from 180 seconds total to now being 60 seconds up to 180 seconds later on. Also, very quickly, I want to go over some very cool and interesting and new information. Now, this doesn't actually change anything in the game, but they actually kind of gave us more information as to how minions and all that things work and how the buffs to minions work and all that good stuff. So let's go over that very quickly. The first thing we have is something called anti-tower socks on minions, which essentially means that this unit takes 30% less damage from turrets. Then we also have something called Gusto, which essentially means that this unit takes 45% of its health per turret shot to kind of give you a better idea as to how the tower actually damages these minions, and this is to melee ones only. Then we have something called Freakish Gusto, which is only to range minions, which essentially states that this minion takes 70% of its health per turret shot, which obviously helps you also to understand how to CS them under tower. Then we have something called Super Mech Armor, which is either to cannon and or the super minions, which states this unit takes reduced damage from AoE effects. And the final thing is called Super Mech Power Field, which is for sure towards super minions, which states grants nearby minions 70% increased damage, 70 MR, and 70 armor. Now keep in mind, this doesn't actually change anything in the game. It has been like this for quite some time now, but now we actually have a better idea because I'm sure some of you didn't even know about these. And last but not least, we have the new skins coming out for the Lunar Revel event, which are, by the way, very, very sexy. So the first of which we have is going to be Lunar Guardian Nasus, Lunar Guardian Warwick, and Lunar Empress Lux. Also, Baron is getting kind of a Lunar Revel makeover as well, looking pretty sweet. And we also have Sweetheart Zaya and Rakan, and Arctic Ops Gragas coming out as well. But that right there is going to be it for this video, guys. There you have it, the biggest changes coming to next patch 8.2. Quite a bit of things to go over, but I hope this video helped you understand them just a bit better. So if you ended up enjoying this video, then definitely hit that like button to show your support, share this video with your friends, and also subscribe if you haven't. Check out my other videos as well, and I'll see you guys for the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.